you take one.
Hi, we're the Wiggles. Hot potato, hot potato.
They're like the Beatles for toddlers.
These tickets were harder than the Stones and Springsteen.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation, and our Paws On Prime segment.
In today's podcast, we're covering the Prime video documentary?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Hot Potato, the story of the Wiggles!
Yes, and as the title entails, this documentary showcases how the famous Wiggles group began and how decades later they become a children's entertainment powerhouse across the world.
Yes. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, click notification buttons in future podcasts and Moto Pause videos.
Absolutely. So quickly we'll let you know, this documentary was directed by Sally Aiken and Fraser Groot, written by Sally Aiken, and it ran an hour and 44 minutes.
Yeah.
And we were really surprised to see, well, I was surprised to see this was on Prime. Rascal already knew.
Yeah, I was
And
just waiting
Rascal
for
was a fan of the Wiggles as a kid.
Yes.
And my favorite song is Fruit
Salad, yummy, yummy.
And yours is
Hot Potato, which is the title.
And I think it's just a testament to how big of an impact they made decades ago, not only on the children but also on the parents. And those children who are now adults still love them. And it was obvious when they were showing different scenes in the documentary in the present where they were going to concerts to still see them when they got older and telling how they made an impact on their lives, how they remember how much fun they were, and the good feelings they had.
Yes. And that was the entire point of the Wiggles. It wasn't one of those educational type shows or groups. It was just a kids entertainment band. But what stood out about them is that just about anything that they sang and produced and was released on VHS, put on TV, DVD, what have you, it was a hit. And they started off in Australia, much like Bluey. And well, there were sensations there, and they really wanted to come to the States because it's even bigger audience, bigger profits and everything. And you could see how huge they were growing in Europe, so it was only a matter of time they come over here, and I guess that's how we ended up seeing the Wiggles.
Definitely. I thought what was really stand out about what you're mentioning is, as you said, they already were huge in Australia. They've been dubbed the Beatles for preschoolers. And when they came here, they didn't have a following. No one really knew who they were. And what really impressed us is that for 5 years, they did tours. Their first concert in the U.S., or the first performance, I should say, was for 2 of the employees and their children. They had 5. And they kept going to different places and performing for 10 people, 15 people, I think, up to the point when Lyric decided to invest in them. They were performing to 50 people at a time, but they didn't stop. They kept going. And then Lyric, who people know because of Barney and VeggieTales, said to open for them as they did a tour around the U.S. and then they blew up.
That's right.
I think what also was interesting is that most of them had gotten education in early childhood, teaching fundamentals, and one was a musician, and Prime pointed out that it was just really improbable that they should have ever become a group. And how they got together was also fascinating.
Right. And the way they said the psychology worked for kids when they were making these programs for them to get them entertained, invested, interactive, and everything that were the key points of development, it was similar to Blue's Clues in terms of interacting with the kids. And the main goal, which unfortunately a lot of people have lost now, is to talk to the kids, not down to them. And it is the perception that when you're talking back to the screen with the characters that you're making an impact, you're getting involved, and they're getting more and more excited because what they're doing is making an impression or a change. And that was the key part in all their songs. You would sing along to it, you would dance, you would do little actions, you do the "Wake up, Jeff" on every video, and there was always something for you to do each time, just like Blue's Clues, only a way more energetic Blue's Clues.
Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Wiggles, they were founded in 1991 by Murray Cook, Jeff Fatt, Greg Page, and Philip Wiltshire.
Yes.
And they're the four men who stayed around until 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had their first departure from the group. And the other three continued to go.
Yeah.
And then by 2021,
I think so.
the one who left returned, and then the other three left.
Yeah, thinking nothing was gonna happen, so yeah.
And we were really surprised. So basically they were known by the colored shirts that they wore.
Mm-hmm. They had yellow, purple, red, and blue. And when they started getting replacement Wiggles, they would just be the next colored shirt Wiggle. Like they had the next yellow Wiggle, the next blue Wiggle, the next purple Wiggle, and then up to the point where we have now in the current state, we have 2 blue, 2 purple, 2 yellow, 3 green or something. So the roster has changed quite a bit over the years.
But I think that the most impressive thing about this document is how much they are still loved. It reminded me of Adam West when he was still alive. He had made Batman, he and Burt Ward, Batman and Robin in 1966 and into 68. And there were people who watched them as children. And when you would see documentaries later, these same people were saying how they got into law enforcement, became lawyers, and have taken on these different roles to help people because of the impact that Adam West and Burt Ward had made on them as playing Batman and Robin. And when we were watching the documentary, there were so many people that kept saying they were their childhood and they made their childhood happy. And they even had footage of where these people were in front of the TV as kids, dancing to the song, singing to the song. In one case, they had a little 2-year-old in a crib and dancing on the beat to the music and singing. It was like, oh my gosh. So they impacted across a spectrum of ages. And it really stood out. Not just for young children who couldn't speak, but for preschoolers, for children that were older, for some teens and parents. And then during some of the concerts they even showed, there were teens there at these concerts dancing and singing to the Wiggles.
Yes.
I love that, like Bluey, they don't say, well, how dare you? You're here at a Wiggles concert. You're a grown woman or man or teen or whomever you are, and you shouldn't be here. And you can see at the concerts there was just an array of people all having fun and enjoying it. And not one time did you hear any type of salacious or asinine comments about
that you normally hear,
like you hear now.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful watching.
Yes, that was actually really refreshing to see that part was not in there.
So what, for you when you were watching it, what is the biggest or best memory it brought back for you watching this documentary?
I think actually it would be 2 things. One would be when we used to... Yes, okay, but that's 2. I think one would be that we actually had the VHS tapes of a little bit of the Wiggles. I don't recall how many were on there because it varied each time. Sometimes it would be 2, 3, or 5 like a DVD, and sometimes it would just be one whole thing and that's it. And I remember putting that in when we didn't have the same Sesame Street tape or some Disney movie on VHS. That would be the thing to, I guess, to occupy me. But it was always fun watching it. And that's the tape where I learned Hot Potato Song, and you knew about the fruit salad one. And then the second thing would be is that the song is still memorable decades later. It's like you pick up where you left off, and it's really a mark of how great the writing is, how great the music is, how everything fit perfectly, when no matter how long it's been, the second you hear a few notes, it's like you never stopped listening to it. It's like you just heard it.
True. And we learned that they've done so much research and studying on what words to use and the feelings kids would get hearing certain words or seeing images. And before I get to this, I was going to talk about their stats because it's amazing. Two things. Anthony Phil is still the only remaining member of the original Wiggles. What color shirt is he?
Yellow.
Okay. And also we learned that originally Dorothy was a man in a suit, and then they actually finally hired a female.
Yes.
Not only to be in the suit, but to voice her. And that female became the first female Wiggles.
Yes. And that was a huge surprise. And how they came up with these characters of Dorothy and Feathersword and all these characters. And now they've added so many that they got their own Wiggles community at this point.
Definitely. So I want you to hear this because this is incredible when you think about it. 4 people who they weren't wealthy, they didn't have backers, they didn't have influence, and they started in their home country and became huge and struck out to America because the saying is if you make it in America then you really made it. And then they persevered and stayed with it, not because they wanted to make money, but because they enjoyed what they were doing. They enjoyed making the preschoolers and their parents and people of all ages happy, and they really believed in what they were doing. And I think that really is inspiring. So the group was formally consolidated in 2005. They were listed at the top of Business Review Weekly's top earning Australian entertainers 4 years in a row, and earned a 45 million Australian dollars in 2009. They've enjoyed almost universal approval throughout their history. Their music's being played in preschools all over the world. They've earned multiple gold, platinum, and double platinum records.
Wow.
Have sold 23 million DVDs and 7 million CDs, and have performed on average to 1 million people per year.
Oh my gosh. And you can see, and they're still going.
They've won a slew of awards, and they've actually been inducted into the ARIA, or the Australasian Performing, let me get that right, Australian Recording Industry Association
Wow.
Hall of Fame.
Wow. So yes. So you just see how many, they're so good. Look how many awards they've won. And it's not in a bragging way. It's just on here and you read it. They've got an award after award after award. And your thing is reserved for something like for grand orchestra music and symphonies and great epics. And then you get these little catchy kid songs. And that's what's earned the records and platinums and golds and everything. It's like, oh, we love it.
And we learned also that one of them was this group was a spin-off indirectly of the Cockroaches. One of them was a member of a band, and the other one really enjoyed their music.
Yes.
So their musical style branched off from educational theory. Anthony Phil was quoted in 2012 in speaking about the state of children's music in the early 90s. Quote, "Where was the fun? Where were the references to the simple things that are so dominant in a child's life? Favorite books, colors, dancing, playing, nap time. And what's wrong with kids getting up and grooving, squealing, screaming, and laughing through a performance? I wanted to explore alternate ways to write and perform for young children to ensure the music was for them, not just the musician. Nothing complicated, snide, or condescending." And I think that sums up exactly
it's perfect
what
because
they are.
you've seen quite a few shows and things now kind of take that to heart, especially with, like you said, the newest sensation right now is Still Bluey, and we know that eventually that's going to pass too, but so far we've seen 3 or 4 things from Australia really captivate kids and teens, adults, families, just pretty much all ranges when it comes to their programming. It was a song, a movie, TV show, game, whatever. They have every few years they have something that locks on to what people really love and enjoy and miss seeing from a lot of movies and things that are out now. We see a slight return of them in some movies we've watched, where they're not reverting to the same old thing and stuff people don't want to see anymore. Some movies are changing that, and it's great. But as far as that being the core part of their program and their drive for the show or movie or song, Wiggles is the one that started all with that.
Definitely. And I think for me, the one word that comes to mind, and I say for me because I'm an adult now, I was an adult then, but the one word that comes to me when I think of the Wiggles is joy.
Yes. That's
Joy.
it. Joy. Absolute joy. It's
And
perfect.
even when you hear Wiggles, the Wiggles, you smile.
Right.
Automatically you smile. I remember when you first told me, I want to see this documentary on the Wiggles on Prime, and the first thing I did was smile and start saying, oh my gosh, the Wiggles, I remember them.
Yes.
You automatically smile and joy and get joyful.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen with a lot of things, especially now with all this going on, people being jaded, people being told they're too old for things, people being told, grow up, and you shouldn't do this anymore, and you're too old for this, and cartoons are for kids, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But the Wiggles always, I think, are going to be relevant, and the Wiggles are going to remain a source of joy even long after they're gone.
Yeah.
Because they bring a smile to your face. And
Yes.
what's better than that?
Right. Absolutely.
So if you watch the Wiggles, remember the Wiggles, love the Wiggles,
Yes.
anything Wiggles, let us know in the comments below, especially if you've seen the documentary on Amazon Prime. If you haven't, it's available there exclusively. I think it was released at an independent movie festival in Australia first before it was put on Prime.
Right.
So if you've seen it in any format, let us know what you think. And if you haven't, go watch it on Prime. It's going to be an interesting hour and 44 minutes. Real quickly, I forgot to mention, they brought up some things that happened during the time the 4 original members were there.
Yeah.
Including some things that happened during 9/11, the COVID scare.
Yeah.
And-
So that's a warning in case you're sensitive to those events still.
And also the Yellow Wiggle becoming sick at one of their performances when they were still all together when he returned. So yeah, we just wanted to let you know that. But the majority of it is fun, interesting, educational, and you're just gonna love it.
Yes. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, movie videos for your anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching Mask Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainers, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your subscribing and joining us every week and more.
Yes. Have a toontastic day.
Peace.